This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Loki episode 4, the Nexus Event.
What's so funny?
It's like, look at your eyes. You like her.
What?
You like her. Does she like you?
Was she pruned?
I mean, no wonder you have no clue what caused a Nexus event on Lamentis. Both of you are just swooning over
Mobius,
each other, I guess.
tell me the truth.
Apocalypse. Two variants of the same being, especially you, forming this kind of sick, twisted romantic relationship. That's pure chaos. That could break reality. It's breaking my reality right now. What a incredible seismic narcissist. You fell for yourself.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is Derek on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Loki episode 4, the Nexus Event.
Yes, welcome to the Nexus, fellow Defenders. This is John, one of your other hosts.
And rounding out this trio of variants, I am Chris. I prefer to call it the Empire Strikes Loki.
I like it.
Yes, it is the Empire Strikes Back episode.
Yeah, pretty much. As long as you've seen the post-credit scene, it's not as scary an episode as I suppose it may have been otherwise. But we have lots to talk about with this episode. We have loads of great feedback to get to, which means we don't have time to talk about all the big news from this week. We don't have time to talk about Good Omens getting a season 2. Our biggest show on our podcast, the one that's got the most downloads, is Good Omens, and it's gotten a season 2. Don't have time to talk about that. Don't have time to talk about Black Widow coming out in cinemas from next week, from the 7th of July. Next MCU movie, first one in over 2 years. No time to talk about that. No time to talk about the holidays that Chris is taking next week. No time for that. All we have time to talk about is Loki. So let's get into Loki.
Okay then. In that Kent, you know what you have to do. Derek, can you tell us who gave us what?
Absolutely, yes. Once again, head writer for the show, Michael Waldron. The episode directed, as all episodes have been, by Kate Herron, and the episode was written this time by Eric Martin, a new writer to the Marvel Universe. He has worked with the writers. He's been an assistant to the writers' room on Rick and Morty and on Community. So he has worked with a lot of comedy people and a lot of people involved in this show as well. So that's kind of cool. Yes,
and if you jump over to Twitter and follow him as Mr. Eric Martin, at Mr. Eric Martin, he's giving away some behind the scenes, some nice tidbits. It's an interesting tidbits.
Yeah.
Things that you could probably guess, but at the same time, one or two like, ooh, that was interesting to know.
I think there's one we're going to talk about when we get into our variants for the episode. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for episode 4, the Nexus Event?
Sure. At the Time Variance Authority Headquarters, Judge Ravona Renslayer takes the blame for the loss of the variants. Renslayer is taking this very personally, as she had the original mission of bringing Sylvie in when she was a child. Mobius is tasked with retrieving the Lokis to restore the sacred timeline. Meanwhile, Sylvie and Loki wait for the oncoming apocalypse at Lamentis 1. Sylvie explains that as soon as her existence threatened the timeline, she was scooped up from Asgard by the TVA, but escaped and has been on the run ever since. When Loki reaches out to comfort her, a brand new variation of the sacred timeline occurs, allowing the TVA to pinpoint the variants and bring them back. Now recaptured, Mobius tortures Loki with a memory from Asgard, and when Loki believes Sylvie has been pruned from the timeline, he reveals to Mobius that all of the TVA is a lie. Everyone there once had a life that was taken away from them and wiped by the Timekeepers. Mobius investigates Loki's claims and learns that Hunter C-20 was pruned as soon as she learned the truth and spoke to Renslayer. But when he tries to free Loki, he is pruned from the timeline. Hunter B-15 also learns the truth about her past and makes a plan with Sylvie. When Loki and Sylvie are brought in front of the Timekeepers, they learn that the heads of the TVA are just mechanical figures and work together to take out their TVA guards. Believing they've won the encounter, Loki attempts to share his feelings with Sylvie before he too is pruned by Renslayer. As Sylvie threatens the judge to find out everything about the true TVA, Loki awakes in another place. With 4 other variants of himself looking on, they need to get a move on soon.
As we said, so much to talk about this episode, lots to get to, and we will definitely get to the post-credit scene at the end of our variants. Let's skip right into variant 1, escaping Lamentis 1, or as I've been calling it, Loki finds love in a hopeless place.
Nice. I like it. Nice reference.
Yes. As I like to call it, I was bashing my head going, what? No!
Well, this is the opening scene, effectively, where we finally do learn Sylvie's history. This was probably my biggest complaint about episode 3, an episode that I don't think hit really hard with all of us. I don't think we were all completely taken by episode 3. A couple of things that we didn't really like about it, but this specifically
except
was
for the meteorites.
The meteorites hit definitely very hard in that episode. But Sylvie's history being held back in an episode which was all about them learning about each other, I felt was a bit odd last week. I mentioned that we would bring up something from the writer of this episode's Twitter. This was specifically something that he called out, that this was supposed to be in episode 3. This was the original ending of episode 3. The two of them sitting there waiting for the apocalypse to happen, and a battle with the TVA was supposed to happen at the end of that episode. And we would have learnt the history of Sylvie. We would have had that moment where we would understand who she was, where she came from. And it is only a minute or two of screen time, with the wonderful Kaylee Fleming, an actress that I know really well from Walking Dead, one of the best new characters introduced in the last 4 or 5 years, but playing the young Sylvie being, taken from her life, in Asgard. We learn all about that history. We learn about the idea that Sylvie's now been on the run for probably 15 or 20 years, running around different timelines, hiding away from the TVA as they followed her over and over again. I think I thought that's a really important detail to know about this character of Sylvie, so you get to like her, and Loki gets to like her, which I didn't feel was in the last episode.
Agreed. This should have been in the last episode. Mm-hmm. This would have been this beautiful ending of the two of them sitting just there.
Yeah.
Versus, okay, I understand that they wanted that, oh my god, how are they going to get out of this moment?
Yeah.
But actually, the despair of the two of them just sitting there, this scene, and then the two of them just looking up to see the destruction coming down, that would have been a much, much harder ending.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I understand why they didn't, because you got this ending as well. So 2 back-to-back.
Would have been awesome.
It would have been, but I can see we would have enjoyed it. I can see certain people going, oh, this is too much now. No.
They did it in Dallas week in, week out. I mean, or Murder, She Wrote.
Or it was the entire series of all the Netflix Marvel shows where they had a cliffhanger every single episode, but at least you could just roll on to the next one.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, you watch it all the way through. Yes. I mean, this is the cutting and slicing with weekly shows. It's, do you get it right ultimately? Certainly when they're doing it like this. And they could have sort of jigged, the scenes in order to have, the stuff on Lamentis 1 between Sylvie and Loki, and with that mini flashback, at the end, and then straight in this episode with everything going on at the TVA, so you didn't miss that with them then being picked up, for sure. Yeah. I mean, but still, it was nice to have, and I mean, watching it now that they're all there, it's fine. So, I mean, it was a really good opening. I really liked it. I thought, just that I was like, they're really brave. They seem to be having a really calm conversation given the amount of meteorites hitting down. So I was half expecting, are they going to take this into a dark territory where, it's almost like sort of a bullet going and hitting them, because there were so many of those mini meteorites. Yeah. And then, again, this whole visualization of Lamentis 1's apocalypse with this planet or moon coming towards them. I loved how it broke up into bigger chunks. Yeah. Seeing these huge chunks, sort of hitting into Lamentis 1, up to the final one that is kind of like tsunami-like coming towards them. Yeah. Just before they're picked up. But I thought that was all really good. And yeah, same with yourself. I think the whole flashback, seeing, young Sylvie sort of just being taken like that, from, I guess, the palace of Asgard, really. Yeah. It's kind of like really shocking. It is almost a kidnap.
They arrived, no explanation at all. Just drag her out of her timeline and drag her to the TVA with nothing going on. You get that, this impression as the show's been going on. They do this constantly. They've been taking people out of their timelines, giving zero explanation, pushing them through this really bizarre situation that we saw Loki go through in the first episode, and then bringing them to court. And this is a little girl. This is a girl who's probably about 10 years old who's being pushed through this with no help from anybody.
I think because it's Odin, it's almost like I felt they should have done a courtesy call to Odin and just say, well, sorry, but we've got to take her out because she's broken from the sacred timeline. Well, I guess Odin would have just said, what on earth are you on about? Which I guess would, sort of disrupt their plans. But
Sylvie does call out that they wipe the entire timeline after taking young Loki away.
Yes, so they do.
The younger version of herself away from that timeline. They completely wipe the timeline. So there is nobody left there for her to return to.
I think what I really liked about it is because you see that scene and it is quite jarring because they're taking this young girl and you see her going through the same process that Loki did in episode 1, But I really like then coming back to the impending apocalypse on Lamentis 1, that I thought it was really quite a powerful, sort of suggestion that Sylvie says that she simply goes, just being created, the goddess, she emphasizes the goddess of mischief. The TVA show up as they alone, considered that a big enough deviation to be plucked from, that timeline and classed as a variant. And that was really kind of, that really hit home, I think, to me. And, it linked really nicely, between those two scenes, certainly. And certainly then just, this steep branch from the sacred timeline as well, which was, I guess, to do, as you say, with the suggestion of Loki finding love in a hopeless place, or at least, about to sort of do something.
Self-love.
Some unthinkable sort of expression of feelings to someone else from him.
Something that Loki's never done before, never thought about anybody else other than himself before, and suddenly he's falling for himself, effectively.
Well, like we discussed just before we started up the podcast, it is, RuPaul's mantra of, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? Yeah. And I guess he's taken that straight to heart.
Very much.
This is the most Loki thing that has ever happened. This is absolutely, I think it's even called out later on by Mobius, where he says, how narcissistic of you to fall for yourself, effectively. Yeah. So it's absolutely that. He's seen a connection, with her here. I was wondering because, and I know it plays out differently later on, but I was wondering if this was something like the new timeline was created and is going so fast because this is two Lokis, two very powerful Lokis coming together. I know they've already confirmed in the MCU, Back to the Future is BS. That version of time travel is total BS in their version of time travel. But this is the thing of why you can't meet yourself in a different timeline or a different past. I was wondering, was that what they were going with? Two Lokis who've combined together, who are now working together, and then that kind of gets thrown asunder when we see multiple Lokis working together at the end of the episode. But I was wondering whether it was that, whether they were just going with the two of them accepting each other and working together, and that's why this timeline spike is going up so rapidly. They even call it out. This is the fastest anyone's ever seen a split from a timeline, possibly becoming the brand new sacred timeline or the brand new timeline. So that's why they had to get in there as quickly as they do and take that out.
Yeah.
So when I was watching it, I nearly threw a cup at the TV, because I was like, oh my God, are they going to go down the route of love is going to save Loki? And I was like, oh no, don't tell me love is the secret thing, the secret sauce that saves the sacred timeline. I was like, that is most kind of BS. But I think what we're learning is that Loki is an agent of chaos. Mm-hmm. It is pure chaos, energy, magic, whatever you want to call it. Put two of them together, acting in unison, That's why the timeline spins so fast, because a lot of the reason they have taken so many variants of Lokis is because of this chaos they bring into the universe.
Yeah.
So when you literally add them together, you are getting this Nexus Event nearly of pure chaos energy, which is very interesting, because when we think about Scarlet Witch or WandaVision, the chaos magic elements there.
Yeah.
What I believe they are starting to set the groundwork around is very much around this new energy of chaos magic, chaos energy, timelines, multiverse. They're hats off. I have to admit, they're laying a beautiful groundwork foundation for this new phase.
Yeah.
In going into Quantum Mania, going into the multiverse of madness and Far From Home and all these other apparently multiversal episodes, films, things like that.
Yeah.
So I walked back as it got more and deeper into the episode. I walked back that, oh God, it's not love is going to save the world.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because they are above that writing trope.
That is the trope that has been
Yeah.
around
Yes.
for so many decades. But you're absolutely right. This is, without doubt, this episode is the episode of Loki where I say, make sure you're not live tweeting it. Make sure you're not having instant reactions, because things change so much throughout the episode. It's the one that had everybody, I feel, from a lot of the reactions we got on our Facebook group, which actually don't make it into our feedback, which we'll talk about later on. But a lot of the reactions that we got in our Facebook group were literally just people typing WTF.
Yeah.
That's basically it, because so many things were going on as they watched the episode. The feeling was, oh God, what is happening here?
Yeah.
You get to the end of the episode and things are resolved and we're setting up a big story as we go on. But the things that were happening moment to moment are pretty massive. I think that's it for the initial variant. Let's move on to variant 2, our next variant. They've been taken back to TVA and both of them had separated. Mobius gets to interrogate, I guess, Loki, or at least punish him for running away, which is what it feels like to begin with. Variant 2 is a little bit about the time loops as punishment. I absolutely loved seeing Jamie Alexander back as Lady Sif. Really hard done by, didn't return for the big moment when the Warriors 3 got murdered in Ragnarok. Felt she was kind of hard done by. She'd been involved in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a character, came back as Lady Sif there, so she actually had a big storyline that never got resolved within the Marvel universe. It was just kind of said that she had been killed, like everybody else had been in Asgard. So it was great to see her back in this role here, as Lady Sif, and just constantly beating on Tom Hiddleston as Loki for cutting her hair, and playing a prank on her. But I think what's most important about it is the line itself. She's actually saying to him, I hope you know you deserve to be alone and you always will be. So it feels like he's done loads of pranks. People are always annoyed at him for the pranks that he's done, but it's her saying what she says to him that has stuck with him for his whole life. He actually says it hasn't, but you know it has, because Mobius has pulled this out of his memory to put him into this time loop over and over again, and it's because of what she says to him, I think.
Very much so. This is something he did in the stories, like the original, the OG, the non-Marvel.
The original Norse.
The original Norse flavor, you know?
Yeah.
I was there back in the day. Anyway.
Chris is 2,000 years old, just so you know.
Hey, and I don't look a day over 1,500.
There you go.
I enjoyed this because, one, I know when they were filming that the amount of times Tom Hiddleston got beaten up and slapped, and his twig and berries got kneed. Wow.
I hope he wore a box, to be honest.
I know they have to, or he has a stunt person.
box.
He is the leader of the show. I'm sure they got a stunt person in to play the lower half of his body.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like knee and pause. Okay, stunt lower half body person, come in. I enjoyed this. I thought this was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
When I say fun, it's a fun interpretation of that technology that they have to create a cell version of that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, he just left him in there.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's not. Okay, it's just like they're just putting him in, like they're putting him in a cell that looks like Asgard.
Yeah.
But it's the split to much later where we see, or the time jump to much later, where we're able to see this consistent time loop has actually broken and done what it's intended in that he is showing remorse.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, this is something that's been used in Doctor Who before, this idea of being trapped in a loop over and over again. But I think the concept of it only being 3.5 seconds long, effectively, just enough for her to come in, knee him, give out to him, say the line to him, and walk on. That's basically it over and over again, which means he never gets that opportunity that the Doctor always does in Doctor Who to actually work on the person and convince them that this timeline's different, because it's just resetting over and over again. So they didn't go for it is very Doctor Who, this show, we've said it before, but they didn't go for that trope from Doctor Who where he convinces the person that he's stuck with to help him out and get him out of the situation. He's stuck there. There's no way out. He's just going to have to put up with it for as long as he's being made to put up with it, basically.
Yeah. What I was just going to say is what I'm enjoying is the non-stop. They are moving this character to essentially just before Infinity War. And to an extent, the character growth is starting to go slightly beyond.
Yeah.
So within, what has been nearly, 3 and a bit hours, his own film, essentially, they have caught this character up from a character growth perspective. And in what I'm feeling is that we are going to end up, fingers crossed, towards the end, the good anti-hero Loki.
Yeah.
And probably beyond that. The multiversal hero, if you will.
There you go. Exactly. Anything else about the time loops punishment or the punishments for the Lokis?
I think the only thing is just, and I guess it brings us on to our variant 3, is, just before Mobius puts him into the bad memory prison, that, Loki, I guess he's wondering what the hell that red time door is. Danger. But it's he says that the TVA are lying to him, to Mobius.
Yeah.
And of course that kind of kicks us into our third point about both Mobius and Hunter B15 are learning the truth. As did C20 through the enchantment being used by Sylvie, where she's accessing the memories, but they're able to see them. And Mobius doesn't know this, but this kicks him off into investigation mode. And I guess he certainly is suspicious of Renslayer, who's acting a little sketchy with him, for sure. But here we see that anyone who has learnt this truth, so we see that C20 is gets pruned. She's killed. Renslayer's lying to Mobius, but Mobius is having to sort of investigate because coming back from the time cell, then Loki expands on that, TVA are lying to him that he said to Mobius. And of course, inadvertently, this is then kind of kicked into B15 where, Mobius drops this idea that the TVA are lying, that it's not all as it seems. And she's got that personal experience of it. But as well, I guess it's with being in that time prison and cell, here Mobius saying that it was to soften him up, but ultimately it has in some respect, but not to the ends it's not to the end that Mobius wants it. For Mobius, it's about questioning him around what happened. For Loki, as you say, he's realized through the fable effectively that has happened in that time cell, just how truly alone he can be by the way he acts. So, and similarly, this sort of speaks to how alone both Mobius and Hunter B15 have been. I guess there's been these detached, sort of decaying waves or signals of their past, whether it's with the jet ski and maybe it's something else with B-15, and it's gradually becoming sort of real for them, that they can feel this loneliness themselves from being effectively, like Sylvie, plucked out of the timeline that they're in by the TVA agents. But I thought this was just really good how, and I liked Mobius sort of stealing the tempad from Ravona to see that testimony of C20, and just the sketchiness of Renslayer. I thought she was really good here. You know, you really get the sense that she's always got an excuse, hasn't she? But you get that sense of her sort of deflecting Mobius all the time here. And I really like that. Just because you can sense they thought they had that history. I guess the interesting thing is with Renslayer, to what extent has she got clearance to know this and has known this, or is another type of TVA employee?
Yeah, exactly.
Effectively.
Exactly. Like we do find out at the start, she's the one that, as we mentioned in the synopsis, she's the one that took Sylvie. So she was one of the Minutemen, just like Hunter B-15 was. She was on the, in that side before, and now she's a judge. What does that really mean? We'll probably learn more of that in the next couple of episodes. But you do kind of wonder that thing about, all of the members of the TVA being pulled from main timeline and then having their memories wiped. You wonder how often that happens. Is this like the Men in Black thing, where they literally are hitting people over and over again and wiping their memories over and over again, giving them a blank template all the time? You know, there's that kind of reasonably consistent conversation that's going on between Ravona and Mobius when he's in her office, kind of pointing out the items that are in there. He asked before, did that come from one of your other agents? And she goes, oh yeah, another agent. It wasn't from you. And you're kind of thinking maybe it was from Mobius, but that mission has been wiped from his mind. Maybe he did go on the mission. Maybe he's had this same conversation, and maybe effectively Ravona's been his handler the whole time, trying to establish a relationship so he doesn't go off track, and follow up on these thoughts that he may be having, these memories that he's having of the jet ski. But it does end with, Mobius being pruned from existence in a pretty shocking moment, I thought, because it's your other major character in the show here, someone as big as Owen Wilson being wiped from the timeline. And again, this is the live tweet moment where you're going, oh, I'm not even going to talk about this. I want to see the rest of the episode before I know what's happened here, because did that just happen? Is Mobius gone? Will we never see Owen Wilson in the show again?
I'm right there with you. We'll get to it later. The ending alone, I wish we didn't get the post-credits, because that ending, I was in shock when they pruned Mobius. I was like, that's bold. I literally, I said those words out loud because I was like, to be fair, Owen Wilson is one of your biggest stars outside of Tom Hiddleston. He is, I hate to put this, Hollywood elite.
He's a big actor. Definitely.
He's a big actor.
And someone I never expected to see in the MCU as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that he gets his going away line where he's going, maybe I'm back in time on a jet ski. You know, maybe he talks about the jet ski again. And that's kind of the goodbye moment before he gets pruned.
It was the classic wow sort of thing. I mean, it was shocking. And it's because with Loki telling him the truth, or at least what Sylvie has told him that they believe to be the truth, which is that they're all variants, and you see Mobius saying, no, you're lying. It's just another one of your lies, to then, seeing the footage of C20, realizing that, where she's pleading to Renslayer that she had a life on the sacred timeline, and that, she's pleading to her that these were her reality. And that he then says, when he goes into the time cell, I'm going to have to trust two Lokis, because he's had to do a 180 to believe him. And you just then, that moment of, Renslayer waiting, and just quite dispassionately pruning
or sending her regards to
Mobius.
prune him.
I have to say there was a lot of pruning going on in this episode, which made me giggle. To be honest, whether you're a prune
as
juice,
a gardener,
well, exactly. I was like, is it a lot of gardening? It's just the term. It just kept me sort of chuckling away to myself every time. Prune him. I was like, oh, short back in size, please. Or, something to that effect.
I do like the MCU Thor tie-in to the term of pruning. When we got first introduced to Thor in his own movie, he talks about the world tree, which is kind of the Norse mythology version of the entire universe. That's how he describes it. And here we have the timeline being treated like a tree where they're cutting off branches effectively. So I like that little tie-in as well, given that we're talking about the Norse god of mischief here, which is really interesting. But yes, there's one other question I'm wondering about, because, it's not an on-screen pruning. Is C20 actually gone, or did they put C20 into some other location to find out information from her? There is obviously the discussion, and we see the camera being turned off effectively, from the tempad that Mobius has stolen, but it was one of those ones where I was going, has she been sent somewhere? Has she been sent off to get her mind wiped and then put back on the job again or something?
So I don't think pruning is death. Mm-hmm. And I think that is we pretty much know that now.
Exactly.
Pretty much know that, and I think is with everyone. I think it's a single teleportation device, in that it sends a Loki to one world where all the Lokis go to that one world, all the Mobiuses go to this world, all the C20. I think that's a bit too far-fetched. I think it's literally everyone goes to this apocalyptic Earth where, once you are pruned, you are teleported to there. Okay. It is essentially a Star Trek teleporter.
And I was wondering whether it was just that they got sent somewhere and their mind was wiped at the same time, and then they start going back through the motions again. So Mobius gets sent back to another place in the TVA headquarters, mind wipes, and walks back out thinking he's a member of the TVA again or something.
I guess it's not death, but it's moving them. I guess it's almost filing them into an alternate timeline that's not considered the sacred one, but where maybe it's just one way of travel unless you're with the TVA or something. I guess that will become apparent, but I must say at this moment though, the pruning, it was like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
And to B15 that, they attempt to go after her and, she's been compromised. If you see a pruner effectively, now I think she survives.
She does, definitely.
She just gets knocked to the ground, later on in the kind of throne room, I guess, for the timekeepers. But certainly, I think all the way through this, I think, with Hunter B15, like with Renslayer, I liked the way that, B15 was kind of just off kilter all the way through this. Really nicely portrayed.
Absolutely. This is why you cast Wunmi Masaku in that role.
Exactly.
She effectively is a stormtrooper from the beginning of the series. She's just someone that captures people. But you give her scenes like this because she's an actress as good as she is. We saw her in Lovecraft Country. We know what she's capable of. We saw her in His House, the excellent, very scary horror movie, kind of, from England. We've seen her in these roles before. And when she started out in the series, we were going, great, she's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, let's see what they do with her. And she's been a background character and just a bit of a badass, saying a couple of comments here and there and standing up to Loki. This episode has the scenes that show why she's here. The moment where she brings Sylvie back to 2050 in front of Roxcart and gets her mind restored, effectively, her memories restored, and it's all done with the rain falling, and every bit of emotion is just written on her face. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and it's a wonderful scene, and once again, another great role for Wunmi Masaku. She's absolutely someone to watch. We're going to see her in movies for the next 10, 20 years, and hopefully great performances every time.
Did you think there was an homage to Blade Runner? I took that.
There's definitely Blade Runner homages throughout this show.
But like just that one scene, I was just like, that was just, I went, okay, like,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. But it's still a beautifully played scene.
Like, it's just when she says, I looked happy, and that emotion of that sort of flooding to her, that memory. It's straight out of, Blade Runner. Yeah, definitely.
I saw a couple of people were like, oh my God, I really wish they had shown us what she saw. And I was like, no. Okay, everyone can have their own opinion. That's the fun part. Yeah. But for me, it was like, no, the emotion on her face, the tears that you could see, the joy and the single tear that was washed away by the rain. I was like, that's for your consideration scene.
Absolutely.
100%.
That will be on her show reel for a very long time, I would say. So those are pretty shocking moments, but great moments for character development. And again, Lost to Mobius is a massive moment in the middle of this episode. But we do get the one that we've kind of been waiting on, because the Timekeepers have been mentioned throughout the series so far. Variant 4, meeting the Timekeepers. Sort of. I think we should probably start really quickly, just to mention that the scene, I think I saw a load of people say this, but the scene itself where we have the 3 alien-looking timekeepers sitting in their chairs, impossible to understand without subtitles for at least 2 of them. I couldn't understand a word they said until I rewound it back and put on the subtitles. It's because one of them is supposed to be serpent-like and is speaking with a serpent tongue, but it's completely obscuring his dialogue. And then another one, I can't remember what the other one looks like, but again, almost reptilian. And it seemed to obscure the actual vocals coming out.
Yeah, it was the 2 that formed the bottom corners of the triangle. Like the top one, right at the top of the triangle, I guess they were nailed to the wall. I mean, I guess so that they didn't move.
No, they were slowly hovering and moving in a floating chair. Because I looked at it, I was like, he's bobbing, or is the camera bobbing?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice, that they were kind of, it almost felt like, sort of a deer head after a hunt, except they had kept them alive or something.
Speaking of interesting choices, an interesting choice to have 3 massive robots, leading the TVA or being the Timekeepers. If anybody ever needs to meet the Timekeepers, send them to this room and they'll shout at them for a minute. What did you think of this massive moment, I suppose, because we're no closer to knowing who's in control of the TVA now?
Well, we got our Wizard of Oz moment. We called this.
Yeah.
Like, we was like, there's a man behind the do not look behind the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what we got, but we just we have yet to see the wizard.
Exactly.
Which is very interesting. Again, this is how I don't know, and I'd love to hear from our fellow defenders on this. I'm too close. I've listened and been thinking about this show, and I've been very deep in that. Like, what I was really hoping was to get someone who's not as kind of steeped in this, is to kind of go, did you expect that this would do a Wizard of Oz thing? Or were they actually expecting, like, dog lizards from space?
Mm-hmm.
Because we called it episode 2, I think.
Yeah.
But we essentially said, like, it's going to be a big front, just depending on who the wizard is.
Yeah.
So I was kind of expecting it. And when they showed the actual Timekeepers, I was, okay, there's more to it than this. And I was expecting, actually what I was expecting is when the sword was thrown, it to pass through.
Right.
And be some form of hologram.
Yeah.
And like a hard light or something like that. And a bit more, I actually was thinking of a humorous, like, ow, ow, ow.
That really
someone
hurts.
like kind of just slinking out of like a hologram.
Uh-huh.
So it's interesting they went with animatronic.
Mm-hmm. Mindless android.
Yes.
Quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So interesting to see who it is.
It felt that the mindless android, that it fitted as well, just the aesthetic and the technology of the whole TVA.
Without a doubt, yeah.
And I mean, for me, it was about, because you have Renslayer going real badass with protect the Timekeepers, real call to arms to her fellow agents to protect them. And, she can see the the detached head. Sylvie's keeping her alive because she wants to know who's behind this. And I guess the question is, does Renslayer know? You know, was protect the timekeepers just that sort of, that purposeful lie to her agents? Does she know that they were mindless androids, which is what I guess we're going to see in the next episode. Or is this just as much of a shock to her, as it is to Loki and Sylvie when they see that it basically, they are not the timekeepers that everyone in this building seems to think that they are. So I really like that.
It could be right behind the curtain. There's the real versions of these 3 timekeepers who are just hiding there, and they're decoys in case somebody attacks them. No, but I do feel like Renslayer knows all about this. It feels like this is the room where you bring people to if they ever need to see the timekeepers, this is the room you bring them to show all the pomp and circumstance of the TVA effectively. But, you know, you wonder, she, as I said, she's moved up from the position that she was in before. She was a Minuteman. She's now a judge. She's obviously been in the TVA for a long time. She knows a lot of secrets. She gets regular audiences in this room, with maybe the real timekeeper, or maybe the real person behind the TVA. She's certainly been here before, but yeah, she certainly knows a lot more. And I love that this is how the episode ends. After the battle between, all of the members of the TVA, it ends with Sylvie versus, Ravona. Sylvie looks to have an upper hand here, and Sylvie's asking the question, tell me everything about the real TVA. So that's where it's ending. I was getting at that point in this episode, just as it got up to that moment. I think I turned to you, John. I'm kind of going, we're here now. We're at the end of the series. We now know the timekeepers are here. Loki's in the room. This will all be resolved in this episode. What are they going to do for the next 2 episodes? And then the fight kicked off. And then we have Loki declaring his love for Ravona. And
did he though?
He is about to.
He's about to.
Yeah, it's suggestive.
I love that she keeps pushing him, going, just say what you want to say. What is it that you want to say? Are we supposed to go somewhere? What is it? What's the information you want to impart to me? And then he just disappears.
Well, it's perfect. The classic narcissist, the lovable chap, cheeky chappy, who is the one person that he can express his feelings to. It's himself. And it, they're what kind of, they're the same. They're so the same. It's just not true. And yet they're also different because one's male, one's female. So, I mean, this is just like, this is fantastically bonkers, quite frankly. But then, the narcissist loving himself, and it's sort of the pruning that moment where you think it's death because you've not had the mid-credit scene, and it's like, oh my god, really? And then, you kind of, I guess, at least for me, I wasn't thinking about, oh, this is just a charade or something like that. I was there going, because of the significance of Mobius dying, and certainly because Loki had just called him his friend, at least just being drawn into the actual scene, I was fantastic because, you saw the meaning of Mobius being pruned to Loki in that instance, and then it happening here. And so it was just like, oh wow, they've kind of killed him twice.
Wow.
This is like, this is significance. Oh yeah, again, another classic. Wow.
I'm really sorry I did make John watch the supercut of Owen Wilson's wows last night from all of his movies, so he does have it on his head. So really sorry. Do you know what would have made the scene just one tiny bit better? If it had been Coulson who'd come back and was wiping Loki from behind exactly the way he was wiped roughly 2 or 3 days beforehand in Loki's timeline here. So, it is a scene where he's taken out, from behind, looking the opposite direction, just like poor old Coulson was when he first died.
So before we move on to our final variant, can we just take a round table? Who is behind the curtain?
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I right now there's not enough information for me to guess anyone other than Ravona is in a much higher position than we think she is. Maybe she took over the TVA at some point to get it to move her from that that level that she was at, the Minutemen level, to move herself up to being in this judge position. Judge seems to be a very high position in this organization. So right now, she's the only person that I think has been on screen. And there's one character coming in from Marvel Comics, Kang the Conqueror, who is a time traveler, well known as being a villain, has been cast and is going to be played by Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country. This would be a great place to bring that character in.
Yep.
Do you introduce a massive villain for future movies in one of the MCU TV shows on Disney Plus? We don't know. This is only the third one. So I think that's also a possibility.
I like that one. I have to admit.
It makes sense. It's certainly the one I'd be going with. Otherwise, I wouldn't be entirely sure unless it was Mephisto. Joke. But to me, that all makes sense that it's Kang, to be honest. And it links in quite nicely with everything else. Otherwise, it is something completely different.
Yeah.
That again, maybe, just builds into, what's going to happen into the movies. So, related to Kang or associated with Kang in some way. So I think it feels like that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that one. I do like that one. I'm just not quite sure if that's where they'll go introducing that character.
Yeah.
I had one quirky one.
Mm-hmm.
It's Loki.
Right.
It's a Highlander-esque type thing where there can only be one Loki across all of time and space. And essentially, Loki has made his way. He was essentially set to be pruned and managed to go beyond the TVA. Basically became the man behind this, and is now in control. And it's this Loki that has been doing it so that his timeline is always the one and all the other timelines are not there.
Very cool. Yep.
And I thought that would be an interesting, a very Highlander-esque, there can be only one. That's why he's taking out, and that's why there's more Lokis, because his chaos energy is more powerful. And I just thought, it would be fun to have Tom Hiddleston go against Tom Hiddleston.
Absolutely.
At the end. That is where my thoughts are right now.
I like it. It'd be like Vision going up against Vision in WandaVision. We have Loki versus Loki at the end of the show, and Loki being successful in his plot to take over the TVA. I like that. So that's
that would be a good one.
Very
for sure.
Cool.
I'm trying to figure out how it works in terms of the beginning, but because obviously he's developed a lot of tech in the meantime. But that's conceivable. He is a god, so but it certainly makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It means potentially the sacred time. Well, we knew the sacred timeline was a false narrative in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that would be really, and it connects him with his glorious purpose, I guess. I mean, this makes him in himself very glorious. Yeah. So
it's either that or it's Miss Minutes herself. Miss Minutes is actually in charge of the whole thing.
So did you want to know the funny? They have not credited who the voice actors for the Timekeepers is. And I went, do you know what would be fun? You know that Benedict Cumberbatch was Dormammu?
Uh-huh.
What if Tom Hiddleston is the Timekeepers? Was the Timekeepers there?
That would be good.
Because he's known to do voices.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be a nice... And that's literally where my brain then started cascading down.
Speaking of special guest stars, let's close out our variants with the mid-credit scene, I suppose, because we've got another massive actor in this final scene. Loki appearing. Loki appearing in this devastated New York, which is quite interesting. You do see the destroyed Avengers Tower on the right hand side of the screen as he just after he arrives, and he's confronted by 4 Lokis, as we've now found out. We originally thought it was just 3. We have let's just give them as they are titled in the credits. They're titled Classic Loki, which is played by the wonderful Richard E. Grant.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love him.
Love Richard E. Grant. I can't wait to see him in this role.
And he's the one with the voiceover as well, saying that, we need to get a move on. As Loki's deciding whether he's in hell, or not.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly. And wearing absolutely, I think it's Loki's first appearance outfit. But if you look close, he looks like he's been there a very long time. It's a very dirty looking version of Loki's outfit.
He looks like fabulous.
He always looks fabulous, but he looks like he could probably do with a washing machine in this apocalypse. We have boastful Loki, according to the credits, which is the one carrying Mjolnir, which is quite interesting. The instant thing that came into my mind when I saw the name boastful Loki was, hang on a second. If he's got the title of boastful Loki, how much more boastful is he than our Loki? Like, our Loki was pretty boasty about his experiences, about who he was in the past. This guy has to have really done a lot of boasting to get that title. We also have Kid Loki, a very popular comic book version of Loki, and also a member of the Young Avengers, as we've had a Young Avenger in pretty much every one of the TV shows so far, and we'll get loads more in the future. Interesting, this is how they'll introduce the Loki version of one of the Young Avengers. He kind of antagonist, protagonist, and also member of the Young Avengers. So it's Loki. He's always pretty mischievous, but this is a version of Loki, that kind of was created at a much younger age, but he's still as mischievous as you would expect.
Yeah.
But I really like the character. I've read a couple of the comic books that he was in. He's really cool. And finally, we have Crocodile Loki.
Awesome.
We're calling that. A lot of dispute and debate on the internet as to whether it's crocodile or alligator Loki. Neither of which are in the comics, but this is a reference to the fact that Loki does change into animals and has in the past. He's been a goat. Has changed into various different animals. So this is an animal version of Loki.
It's also a reference to Throg, who is the frog Thor.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, okay, well, this makes him then Koki or Crocky.
Or Croaky. I like Croaky.
Yeah,
Croaky.
Croaky. That sounds quite good. I wonder if Crocs will bring out a line with the little head piece on the front of the Croc.
Of the shoe.
Yeah.
You never know.
That would be quite cool.
So, yes, a big shocking moment. We're now on what looks like a New York filled with Lokis. But I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. It was definitely the moment going, oh, I want to see the next episode now. I think the episode would have suffered a bit if it hadn't been in there, because it felt like a massive downer in a show that's had a lot of fun with the premise. It felt like a massive downer to end with dead Loki, effectively. So yeah, it's a big reveal for the end of the episode. Yeah,
no, huge. And it was an interesting choice not to give it that, because yes, you could have ended it on such a like joke, The Empire Strikes Back type. Oh my god, it is literally, our hero is dead, no more, the world is ending, and then we get 2 hours left of it. But no, it was fun to see, and it was a fun introduction.
Yeah, it was a fun introduction. I mean, I was not expecting a mid-credit scene, and I would have loved this episode anyway, with the big moments, because unlike Empire Strikes Back, it's a week's time till you see the next one.
Exactly.
And, you know, I just thought it was absolutely ballsy that they took out, Mobius and, the Loki that we've kind of grown up with the MCU, seeing, and, that was great for me. This, with having Richard E. Grant in there, was icing on the cake, plus the others, was just awesome. But yeah, I was not expecting any kind of mid-credit thing. I was just thinking, oh, that'll be, you know, episode 6. Certainly no expectation that there was going to be this little, sort of little gem of a scene, mid-credit, on episode 4. So, like, great surprise again. So, I mean, this just was like full of wow moments.
Absolutely.
True. The big credit for the final scene is, Val, if you're nasty, recruiting Sylvie.
There you go.
For her thing.
That absolutely could be it. Or just Kid Loki. Maybe
or Kid. Val recruiting a Loki.
Val recruiting something. Remember, TVA symbol upside down spells Val, as we know.
Exactly.
I only have one other note for the episode to talk about before we go. It's just that line from Mobius being so annoyed at how difficult it is to capture Loki. He says, because we've brought in Kree, we've brought in Titans, we've brought in vampires. Ooh, big ones there. So Titans would be possibly, they've taken in Thanos in the past, because Thanos didn't stick to the timeline where he was supposed to destroy the galaxy or destroy half the galaxy. Kree, major characters in Captain Marvel and in Guardians of the Galaxy, Kree, and major characters in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. And vampires, like Blade, which is the upcoming movie, starring Mahershala Ali in his other MCU role. So yeah, we have a nice reference here that they do things other than take out gods and take out humans.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, we do know there is also another vampiric multiversal character that we should have seen by now, but we'll probably see next year. Mobius.
Yes, over in the Sony Marvel universe.
Yes, which is a multiversal, is part, who knows.
Maybe.
And then in terms of Titans, we do have the Eternals coming soon. So they technically were on Titan, so theoretically they're Titans. But we'll get into that later when we do the film. I have one note. One nitpick, I think, and it's one that stuck with me throughout this whole episode. They really fixed the timeline pretty quickly from the last episode, where they were giving out and like everyone was going crazy.
Yeah.
If you remember, the episode before last, end of episode 2, we literally saw the timeline going close to breaking point.
Yep. Yeah.
Where it was redlining all over the place and everyone was running. Within the space of a couple of hours, everything is fine and everyone is good. Like, that was just, they needed to, there's a missing scene. There's a missing bridge in that we just didn't get. And I was like, because when we did get to see them we saw the timeline and we got to see Mobius and everyone in the TVA. We saw it was fine.
It was
restored. Not redlined. It was restored. Yeah. So it was just a line or a scene would have been helpful there, because they were like, this is the end of the timeline. Everyone running around.
I totally agree. And I know that the in-universe explanation for that is going to be that time moves differently in the TVA. This could be a week on. Yeah. We're seeing Loki and Sylvie on the planet, and they're only there, 20, 30 more minutes basically. But the time that's gone on the TVA could have gone on longer. But yeah, it would have been really good to have one line from Ravona maybe going, oh, that was a difficult couple of weeks, cleaning up the timeline and getting that all resolved, or whatever line they needed to say that it took them time or was difficult or whatever, just to reference back to episode 2. But yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
That's kind of what I took, the whole scene. I know they were talking about closing the case, but that's the whole scene with Mobius and Renslayer where they're having a few whiskeys. Mm-hmm. That's what I took. That was that everything was back okay, because we saw all these branches going off. Then there were loads of TVA agents going through the doors. So, and I mean, I just assumed that was it. Yeah. So for me, that I didn't really have too much of an issue. I know what you're saying. It wasn't really covered, but I guess ultimately that was the device, was to get her into the TVA, and it wasn't to see what chaos it was causing on all those planets. Yeah. But maybe there's something to come, who knows? But I kind of took that whole thing in Renslayer's office to be kind of, all kind of calm, because we were close to chaos, that kind of thing, for sure. The only note I've got is just one line. I just thought it was really good at the start, where on Lamentis, because I just thought that scene with Sylvie and Loki. They're all very melancholic. It was kind of, with the impending apocalypse. And I thought it was kind of nicely rueful, I guess, is being destined to lose what makes a Loki, which I thought was kind of quite nice.
A really good line. Really, really good line. It did just occur to me that moment on Lamentis. We were actually talking about this, John, and completely forgot to mention it, about the fact they're getting missed constantly by the meteors. It did occur to me that, again, another possible in-universe explanation for this. Sylvie says that she's been traveling constantly and hiding in the apocalypses. There are only so many of those that you can hide in. So potentially she's just been on this planet multiple times and sat in this particular moment watching the apocalypse before getting out of there. So she may know that these two stones perfectly placed are the exact place to sit and not get hit by meteors. She just might know that because of the many times she's been to this place.
Well, she says she grew up there effectively on the edge of the apocalypse, and this is where she will ultimately meet her end.
Don't step over there to the left and 2 paces to the left, or else you will be hit by a meteor. You know, she's just been there a lot. Maybe that's what it is. I think that's it for everything about the episode overall. But guys, I guess that leaves us with how do you defend the episode? Chris, do you defend Loki episode 4, the Nexus Event?
I do, surprisingly. No, I really enjoyed this. I thought there's not much more I can add to our discussion points on this, aside from, like, the two things I bumped up against in some of this is completely outstripped by the what we were given, and some of the moments, the touchingness, the lines, the cinematography, the choices and the decisions, the plots. It just was fantastic, and it's fast becoming. I'll need to give this whole series one more watch, but it's fast becoming one of my favorites.
Right.
Just based on the zaniness, if you want to call it that. Like,
it's something so unusual,
Exactly. The uniqueness, there you go, rather than zaniness, the uniqueness of the series. I completely defend this. John, do you defend this episode of Loki?
I absolutely do defend this episode. It's the best episode for me. I give it 5 bad memory prisons out of 5. I just thought this was really good. Nice kickoff. It was all kind of downbeat and melancholic. And to be honest, it just kind of went further downbeat. And I really kind of liked that. I thought it was really affecting with the prunings, both of C20 assumed, but certainly with Mobius and then with Loki, like real kind of massive moments. And, it almost to the point where relegated in 4th place is the fact that the timekeepers are all fake. They're just mindless androids. So this was great kind of setup previously, really sort of bringing it, with all these questions, the Renslayer becoming sketchy, effectively the dispassionate way in which she effectively got her agents to go after the TVA Minutemen who knew the real situation. And then just that final little mid-credit scene with just that lovely array of other Lokis that are looking down on Loki as, phew, he's not dead. And I guess I would have come to that conclusion over the course of the next week if it hadn't been there, and the last thing we'd seen pretty much was Loki getting pruned and sort of vaporizing out of existence. And I think that's what was just so great. This is real ballsy kind of storytelling to be that kind of definite. Yeah. And okay, we know now why, but it doesn't change the fact that this was just a really fantastic episode. So yeah, this is 5 bad memory prisons out of 5. Turning it obviously into good memory prisons now that I know that Loki's not dead, but also I guess that hopefully Mobius is not redeemable, but it is recoverable, I guess.
There you go, recoverable, yes.
Which I think could be quite nice.
Man, the idea of a planet of Owen Wilson's.
Wow.
Amazing. Really like this episode as well. I totally defend it. There's nothing really else I can add to what you both have said, except it was so good to see Kelly Fleming in the role as young Sylvie. I want to call her it again. Really, really cool to see her there. I'd love to see her more because I know what she can do. She's such a great actress over on Walking Dead. So I wish we'd seen a little bit more of her. But now she's in the MCU playing young Sylvie. We may see her in the future on this show, or maybe in a movie in the future. So that would be very cool. And yes, once again, calling out Wunmi Mosaku for that amazing scene in the rain. I thought that was such a cool moment. Time for a drink, I think, off to the pub. We do have time to get to the pub quiz this episode. We do have loads more feedback to talk about in a moment, but let's go to the pub. John, do you want to give us our pub quiz question for this week?
Yes, fellow defenders, fellow quizzers, do you like a good old drink, like the timekeepers, so much so that you're slurring your words, whilst you're plastered onto the side of the wall? Do you want to grab a celebratory whiskey for a great day, closing your respective cases, whatever that may be? Then yes, it is pub quiz time. It is question 4 for episode 4. Question: before returning to Sylvie, Hunter B15 sees a poster on the wall. What does it ask, and what is the answer?
There you go. So there's a poster on the wall. What does it say, basically? Yeah?
Basically,
John?
that is it.
John, do you want to give us the question one more time?
Certainly. Before returning to Sylvie, Hunter B15 sees a poster on the wall. What does it ask, and what is the answer? Remember, answers through to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com for this question, or join them all to pull them all together in a final big end of series email through into us again at feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're still looking for our goodies for this particular giveaway. Part of the reason we just noticed really is that they've been trying to keep so much secret that even the original Funko Pops of Mobius and Loki won't be released until, I think it's late August of this year, so well after the series is out. So there's not a huge amount of official merchandise out there other than t-shirts, because those generally come out pretty quickly. But we'll get something together. As you know, it will be a good set of goodies for the pub quiz. But please keep sending in the answers, because it's been enjoyable reading your thoughts as well. Speaking of thoughts, let's get over to our feedback section, guys. We've got lots of feedback in this episode. We were kind of commenting on that. With WandaVision, there seemed to be our listeners contacting us straight away from the start with so much going on. It seems like we're at the tipping point with Loki, where everybody wants to talk about this episode.
Yes, 100%. Starting with the one and only Jerry, who sent us an email to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, where he said, "Hey guys, episode 4 had a bunch of what the heck moments. The Lady Sif time leaf, hilarious. Mobius being pruned, heartbreaking. Time Variance Authority, a bunch of Chuck E. Cheese androids, very Wizard of Oz. Loki pruned, what the... The end credits scene with all the Lokis, it looked like a new AC/DC album cover.
Excellent.
The implied Loki loves Sylvie is narcissism at its best, and also uncomfortable. Cannot wait to hear your thoughts, Jerry and Niceville." I did think you were starting to go for a haiku at the beginning. But yeah, if you can turn the next email you send as a haiku, that would be amazing. Just saying. Okay, you can do this. I believe in you.
Absolutely. I love the idea that this is an AC/DC album cover in that final scene.
Yeah,
That's
me
very
too.
cool. I'd buy the album, and I'm not a big AC/DC fan, so yeah, very cool. Thanks so much, Jerry. Also we got an email in from Victor Von Doom, who says, "Hi, Derek, Chris, John, and fellow defenders. Well, a lot to unpack here from the episode. Nice to see Kaylee Fleming from The Walking Dead as young Sylvie. How did the TVA contain the explosive time bombs? Sorry to see Mobius go down, or is he in another timeline, same as Loki? Was B-15 killed in the final battle, or just incapacitated? Loki came close to confessing feelings for Sylvie, another version of himself. How would that even work? Ravona better sing like a bird for Sylvie. I love the Brenda Lee ballad on the end credits, dating myself here. The group of Lokis encountered in the end credits scene kind of confuses me. Was that an alternate Thor with the hammer? Is the reptile a Loki, a pet, or the future Midgard serpent? As always, looking forward to your podcast and Defenders feedback. Excelsior, Victor Von Doom. Oh, P.S. Forgot to ask, who built the Timekeepers? John, help me out here. Beside Tony Stark, one man has built many robots and androids. Dr. Doom.
Well, that is absolutely true, Victor.
Love it, Victor.
It is, Dr. Doom does love tinkering with, robots, androids, you name it. He likes to do that. Plus, S.H.I.E.L.D. likes to get in on the action of robots as well. With
life model decoys.
Exactly.
Yes.
So definitely, a few people like to construct a good old robot, for sure.
It's Dr. Doom.
But Dr. Doom would be awesome, because I can see I really hope Feige likes those two together, because I can just see how it works so beautifully, in my mind.
Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange together.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be cool. Are they all wearing green hooded outfits? The Timekeepers? Because if they are wearing green hoods, he tends to put green hoods on all of his Doombots. Yeah.
But they, I think they had green faces, or at least one of them did for sure. Yeah. Just to some of your points here, Victor, as well. The alternate Thor was actually boastful Loki. Boastful Loki. So
one of them had to get their hands on Mjolnir. If there's infinite versions of Loki, one of them had to be.
It's in the Agent of Asgard series.
Yeah, and the Crocagator Loki as well was definitely a mischievous Loki. They stalk around in the depths, and you don't know till you've been hit by one of them, I guess.
I love the idea that it might grow into the Midgard serpent, but I don't think they're
it could be like Lake Placid in Asgard. That would be quite good.
Fantastic.
I just had a thought, though.
Uh-huh.
What if Mobius is the man behind the mirror?
You never know.
Because literally his mind, essentially he was the thing, and he's like, do you know what? I feel bad at the moment. Renslayer, you take over. I'm going to go be an agent. I'm going to wipe my mind for a while. And the pruning, because then you can have Owen Wilson as the bad guy. Be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. Or even maybe Renslayer did wipe his mind and took over from him. Maybe that too. That's a very, very interesting thought.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Next up, May says, hello, I really enjoyed this week's episode of Loki. I was hoping that Loki and Sylvie's relationship would stay more on the platonic side, but this episode steered to the more romantic path. I had guessed from the beginning that the Timekeepers were not what they seemed, but the second to last scene confused me so much more than I could have imagined. My prediction is that the real Timekeeper is the strongest Loki, and there will be an ultimate Loki battle. I'm hoping for some very historically accurate Lokis to show up, but then again, I don't really know what is accurate or not. I just like Norse mythology movies and shows like Ragnarok. My last question is, everyone who is zapped by the stick thing dead, or do they get another chance like Loki does? Looking forward to the podcast. May. I guess that everyone remains alive and is just transported. I mean, that's my working assumption at the moment, and that either it's just to multiple different places, or it's almost kind of like the same place. I mean, I guess the urgency that you heard in Richard E. Grant suggests that there is quite a significant threat on this destroyed looking New York planet Earth, you know, and maybe it is kind of like the equivalent of the Office Shredder, where it's like, in you go, you just go into this planet that you're never going to come back from.
Okay.
Something like that. So yes, you don't die by going there, but effectively your chances are more or less that you're going to die.
It's Battle World.
So yeah, Battle World. Exactly. That's how that's my kind of working theory, I guess, at the moment. And yeah, I guess accurate Lokis, there's just, I guess we'll just see where their imagination takes them, I guess.
Well, exactly.
We could have pot plant Loki, I guess, if we've had
infinite possibilities,
John. Yeah. Donut ring Loki, with a nice cream sort of horn.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. Thanks so much, mate.
Yes, thank you so much, May. We also got an email from the one and only Coffee and Vodka. Great combination. Coffee and Vodka had this to say: greetings, fellow defenders of the Wibbly Wobbly. So glad I decided to wait until episode 4 to put anything to screen. Taken together, episode 3 and 4 make for one grand chapter filled with humour, adventure, pathos, and more importantly, continued world building. Now it's clear that episode 3 was primarily for the emotional bonding of Loki and Sylvie, allowing for her fuse to be even more lit with the death of Loki in 4. So nice to see the gender role reversal in what would otherwise have been a tired trope. I hope she survives what looks like inevitable implosion of the TVA. WandaVision gave us the Scarlet Witch as a Nexus being. Falcon and the Winter Soldier established Sam as the new Captain America. Loki, however, has the glorious purpose of being the bridge-building series between phases 3 and 4, and seemingly 5 in just 6 episodes. No small task.
Massive.
Yet they've managed to do so with timely aplomb. Greatly look forward to your podcast every week, and hope you don't mind if I take a few paperweights out on my way out of the office. Coffee and vodka. Coffee and vodka, of course, take as many paperweights as you want. Just remember, if you're going to pocket a time stone, use it appropriately.
There you go. There you go. Or leave us some coffee and maybe some vodka.
Well, the coffee, yes, because speaking of which, if anyone wants to leave Derek a coffee, they can go to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI where they can buy you a coffee.
There you go.
Slicking that one in there, right there. See what I did there?
Is there such a thing as a Russian coffee?
There should be, if not.
There certainly should be. There certainly should
With
be.
a bit of vodka splash in, keep you warm in the deep
Depths
winters.
of winter.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. But really good point about taking episode 3 and 4 together. I know it's one of those constant things when we're doing episode by episode discussions. We love talking about episode by episode. We love thinking about the theories of the show. But sometimes when it gets to that point where you're going, do you defend the episode or not? And there's something really big missing from the episode, like I was saying about last week, where not having the reveal of the full backstory of Sylvie when you had the opportunity to do it. You know, you take these 2 episodes back to back or watch them back to back, and it all makes more sense, and it's all there on screen in the full series. Of course, it's the right way to see it, but just difficult when you're watching week to week and have to wait 7 days between them. But thanks so much for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Next up, Chloe's back. Sending her thoughts about Loki. We haven't heard from Chloe since the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She says, "Hello, how's everyone? Sorry I haven't written an email for a while. I was busy at school, but now I'm on my summer holidays, and I got a toy poodle puppy. Her name is Happy Harlem, and I spent a lot of time training her, and I kept just forgetting to write into you guys. She's named after Happy Hogan from Spider-Man Homecoming.
Excellent stuff.
Right? But we didn't like the name Hogan so much, and we're from New York City, so we chose Harlem instead of Hogan.
Good
I
stuff.
like it.
That's
It's
very
so cute.
Very cute.
And Harlem, where Luke Cage is from.
Exactly. Yes. We made a trip to Harlem when we were in New York last time, I think, which is very cool. Very cool. Chloe continues, instead of writing about the past episodes, just write about the one from today, Loki episode 4. I found it weird that he started to fall in love with the other version of himself, Sylvie, when they were close to death, when the planet almost crushed them, but was saved because their love made a branch. I also found it interesting how everyone who works for the TVA is a variant and had a life of their own before. But most of all, it's strange how the timekeepers are robots, which means someone was controlling the robots, and they're the real timekeeper. To me, it seems like Ravona, because maybe that video that Mobius looks at finds C20. When Ravona appears in the corner of the screen, she seems like C20 found out the truth and ended up pruning her. I'm just most curious about the timekeepers being robots and wondering who is in control of it all. I can't wait for the next episode. Oh, and it was really funny seeing Loki wearing office clothes in this episode as well. From Chloe, 12 years old. And here's a picture of Happy for you. Guys, can you see the photograph of
Oh
of
my
her
god.
puppy?
Very cute.
She is gorgeous.
Very cute. Almost looks like a teddy bear.
Mm-hmm.
For all of our listeners, it is a teddy bear looking brown pooch puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
Absolutely gorgeous.
Do you remember Despicable Me? It's basically the child goes, "It's so cute, I'm gonna die." There, that's what Chloe has sent in.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chloe. Great to hear from you.
Yeah,
and don't
thanks.
worry. Enjoy your summer holidays. Take care of the doggy. We'll hear from you after the next episode, hopefully.
We'll always be here.
Yeah,
We
thanks,
don't-
Chloe.
As an adult, we don't get summer holidays.
Well, Chris, you're going on your summer holidays
That's
next
true.
week. You can't
I'm
lie.
going on a short 3-day break.
There you
There's a
go.
slight difference.
Thanks so much, Chloe. Let's head on over to Facebook for our thoughts from the Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries.
Yeah, first up is Heather Wallace. Heather says, the energy with everyone back in the TVA was excellent. So much happened and there was a lot of character development. The pacing was very good. Conversations that moved both plot and character dynamics were interspersed with big action scenes. I do have a few quibbles. I couldn't understand what the timekeepers were saying.
Exactly.
And B-15 disappeared from the fight after her big rescue moment. But it was a really good episode. I'm so glad I stayed on to listen to the end song. It's an English version of an Edith Piaf song that I love. And so I was still tuned in for the mid-credit scene. And what a scene. Richard E. Grant as another older Loki I cannot wait to see where this goes. Yeah, thanks, Heather. Yes, Richard E. Grant there was classic Loki there, and I know what you mean about B-15. Just because we had seen so much pruning with Mobius and then with Loki and assumed with C-20, because she was kind of taken out by two of the agents, I just assumed they would then prune her immediately, but I think she was just kind of knocked to the ground. And because as you know, with I guess serpent dens or just the dens of the big bads, even though they turned out not to be, it was filled with a lot of smoke. So yeah, I think she kind of got lost under the smoke of the chamber room where the timekeepers were. Yeah. But she certainly wasn't pruned, and I think she was just taken out. So I'm expecting, she will groggily sort of get up and then assist Sylvie with the interrogation of Renslayer.
Definitely.
For next episode.
Agreed. I think that's what we're gonna see with that. Thank you so much for the feedback, Heather. Next up, we have some feedback from Alan Thomas, who said, "I liked this episode better than the previous two, but there was so much plot armor popping up everywhere throughout it." That it is good armor, though. I'm not gonna lie. It was interesting armor.
See, I don't know. I usually refer to plot armor in things like, in Walking Dead, the main characters can no longer die because they've been around for so long. And here we lose two major characters, get pruned from the show. But I suppose we do see that Loki's back at the end of the episode. So maybe that's it. But yeah. Thanks so much for that, Alan.
Yes, thank you. We also have some feedback from Ray Felix, who went, "What the hell happened at the end? I can't believe it. I thought it was hilarious that the timekeepers were robots. Is this the work of Nightmare or Mephisto after all?
Maybe.
Or is it Wanda creating these Nexus events? Is this WandaVision in Loki world? I'm trying to figure out the mystery behind the blue Franklin D. Roosevelt High School pen. Why was it significant to mention? Who is the other agent she mentioned that she was seeing?" Good question, Ray. Is this the work of Nightmare Mephisto? I'm going to go with no. Is it a Nexus event? Yes. Is this a WandaVision Loki world? Well, technically, WandaVision and Loki are in our world because they're on our TV, so yes. And the Franklin D. Roosevelt High School pen, I have no bloody clue.
Yeah, that was where Mobius noticed the pen that he was writing with wasn't possibly Ravona's pen and possibly brought in by another agent. So that was what I was saying earlier on about potentially it was brought in by him and his mind was wiped and he doesn't remember. That's my only connection to why it was called out, that he possibly was the one that brought it in but doesn't remember it because his mind was wiped.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's any other links to the pen. And yeah, I guess like Chris, I don't get the feeling of Nightmare or Mephisto in this, to be honest, either.
I think it could be anything right now as well. So
it really could. Possible. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks so much, Ray. Dan Lee says, "I rarely swear, but goddamn, there were two moments where I said a very rude word extremely loudly. That's probably going to be my youngest child's first word now." Excellent stuff.
Loki leaving a lasting impact.
Yeah. No, but it could be even better. Your first child could be going, "Wow."
Yeah, well, that's
wow.
True. That is true. Thanks, Dan. Elizabeth Nikolajevic says, "Getting a Wizard of Oz vibe about the timekeepers now." Mm-hmm. Yes, I think the green curtain has well and truly been pulled back.
Yes.
It is the Emperor without clothes at the moment. But who is the naked Emperor behind? Pulling all the...
I think you're mixing...
Pushing all the buttons.
Yeah, I think you're mixing your metaphors.
Just slightly.
I really am.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. AJ Ebersol says, "First off, I love the podcast. I've been listening since I watched The Boys, and I enjoy all of your insights. I plan on listening to earlier episodes as I'm rewatching a lot of Marvel at the moment. As for Loki, my wife and I are loving this show. We had such a huge gasp when Mobius was pruned that we paused and just sat there with our mouths opened. I love that Kaylee Fleming was the young Lady Loki. She is great in The Walking Dead. I also love the post-credit scenes. I can't wait for next week. I also have a question for the three of you. I am trying to get into reading the Marvel comics. Where do you think a new reader should start?" Thanks, and keep up the great work. Thanks, AJ. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, AJ. And that is a serious question, which could have multiple answers to, I guess.
Yeah, there's some great options. Getting some digital comics. There's some free digital comics over on Comixology, for example, which is a great place to start and kind of get to know what you like. If you're looking for Marvel Universe comics, some characters from the Marvel Universe, that you want to get some good stories of, I'd highly recommend personally Captain America's current series. I think is absolutely brilliant. It's about 30 issues in total, so it's about to finish up, I think, in a month's time. He's one of my favorite characters. I definitely recommend anybody reading that book. Any particular recommendations, guys, as to where to jump in? Would an event comic be a good place to jump in to kind of get a good sense of some characters?
I was going to kind of suggest that, but sometimes the big events you can get, at least it happens to me, there's just so many different things connected to it that it can be really just like a little crazy, and some of it is a bit even just it's hardly worth mentioning that it's connected to some event. But one that I think is really good is World War Hulk. I think I think that's quite nice and tight. So definitely I was thinking World War Hulk, and even Secret Invasion, I think, is another good one. I think they're a little bit more contained. They're not quite as sprawling as, say, Civil War was.
Well, actually, Civil War is probably the one I would recommend overall, because it does include so many of the characters in the universe. And if you read the central story, the 6 or 8 comics that make that up into that volume that's all collected, you get a good story in there with loads of characters in the universe, and kind of gives you an ability to kind of pick which ones you like, because everybody's making this big decision as to where they fall on superhero registration or not. So see which ones you're aligned to, I suppose.
I was going to make a quick suggestion of Dawn of X, Power of X, which is essentially where they rebooted to a degree the X-Men universe within the Marvel Comics, where everything was kind of set back to a point, and it's available in hardback, and you can get all the digital copies and stuff like that. But it's essentially that, and that if you enjoy that, there's off branches of multiple other like Excalibur and a few other like versions of that, the new X-Men. Like, so if you enjoy that, that's a good jumping off point, because Jonathan Hickman essentially sets the groundwork for that whole universe in that mutant universe. I highly recommend Spider-Man, as always. Any of the runs. Venom by Donny Cates, if you enjoy Venom. Very, very, very good. And that went huge. There's multiple episodes. It's just finished. But more importantly, depending on where you live, check out your local comic book shop. Because they are some of the best and brightest in the universe when it comes to this. So kind of go in, tell them some of your films. Obviously, COVID dependent, stay safe. But if you have other questions, obviously, and you can't get into a comic book shop, ask them in the group. But they are one of the best spots. They will be able to tell you and just say one or two things. Or
the other thing is, I know it always seemed to work for me, is just, as Chris said, go into the comic book shop and just look and what jumps out at you, as well, because I've come across so many good, comics just by that look, because the art is part of it. Okay, sometimes the writing can be but other times it connects. I mean, the tale, I guess, that I normally say is, we were in Paris and we walked past a comic store in Paris, had an English section, and that's where we saw Walking Dead for the first time. And I picked that purely on the basis of the cover, because it was in black and white, and not many, it was just this wall of color, and that was in black and white. So, that's another thing.
That's how I got into the Ultimate Universe.
There you go.
When they launched the Ultimate Universe, it looked like a really interesting comic cover, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the Ultimate Universe tends to be what Marvel were taking their earlier storylines for the MCU.
Oh, God, yeah, actually, sorry, yeah, so the Ultimate Universe. It's contained, and it's done, and it's like, it's a multiverse, some character crossover, great Spider-Man bit, Miles Morales is from that. Oh my God, yes, Ultimate Universe, ask for that.
Yeah, So I hope we've helped you out, AJ, but it's a really good suggestion from Chris, either popping into your local comic book shop or even just sending them an email. A lot of them are ordering stuff online and can give you recommendations as well. Hopefully we've helped. Thanks so much, AJ. Also over on Facebook, Lara Willie Swink says, "Oh, hey, Judith, damn." Nice to see that reference. There is to Kaylee Fleming, who plays Judith on The Walking Dead. Lara says, "Thank goodness for the mid-credit scene. After Loki's death at Thanos' hands, which was entirely too simple for the wily god of mischief, I was going to flip a table if Loki succumbed to another ridiculous death. This must totally infer that Mobius is still alive as well. And what created the massive timeline spike? They say you cannot find true love until you learn to love yourself. Is it because Loki is literally falling in love with himself that the universe is falling into chaos?"
Yep, because self-love is against the rules of the universe, apparently.
Well, I really hope he sissies that walk.
There you go.
Yeah,
Next
there
episode.
you go.
If you can't love yourself, how can you love anybody else?
Yes, thank you, Lara. And yeah, flipping a table was the least of the problems I was going to do if that was the actual death of Loki. I was like, oh, okay.
What makes a Loki going out with a meaningless death would be the final result in this episode. Thanks, Lara.
Yes, thank you, Lara. Finally, we have feedback from Brandy Elise Anderson, who said, "Me and Mobius, WTF. Me and Loki, WTF. Ever loving F. Me at mid-credit, Black Loki. Wait, there's an alligator Loki? What is happening?" Yeah, we were all with you. I still think it's a croc.
Yeah.
Just gonna say, because a croaky is more than is better than a alligator, if you want to call it that.
Allegoki. That's like allegory.
Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah, okay. I like that one. Okay.
No, I think there was one that we saw from Esquire magazine, wasn't it, John? What was the Crocagator?
Yeah, Crocagator.
The Crocagator Loki.
But there's no Loki in there.
Well, a Crocagator. There you go.
It's an alligator and a croc with that's nothing to do with. It's then a crocagator with horns.
I just know there was a lot of dispute on Twitter as to whether it was an alligator or a crocodile. That was all. Thanks so much, everybody, from our Facebook group. Again, you can come over and join us on the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Got a couple of voicemails in for this episode. First up, first-time voicemailer, Samuel Cox.
Hey guys, it's Samuel here. I wanted to try and get a little more involved in the conversation after being an avid listener since the first WandaVision episode. Absolutely love the podcast and thanks for always supplying great content. Now, into my thoughts on episode 4 of Loki, Nexus Event, an episode filled with one jaw-dropping moment after another. Such a change of pace from the last episode and I am here for it. The main points of the episode include the obvious, the TVA with the smoke and mirrors Grant Wizard-style puppets we all assumed from the start, and that is the TVA is beginning to crumble one variant at a time, including Judge Renslayer, who's known about the facade since the start. I also believe she still could be in the dark of some aspects of the grand plan from this mysterious conductor, who may or may not be her lover Kang, or he who remains. The little details from this episode sent my brain into overdrive, such as Judge Renslayer pushing Mobius to work his Loki, and abusing his feelings for her to her advantage. I believe suggesting that due to the abundance of Loki variants, they also have an abundance of Mobius variants, working each to their own and then pruned after having completed their task. Therefore, Judge Renslayer would know exactly how to make each Mobius tick and comply in any given situation. Now, I will send a separate voice note to cover some more of my thoughts because I have a lot, as I've been hiding in the dark for a while now and want to cover as much as I can. Be right back. Hey guys, staying on the Mobius train from my previous voice note, I believe that with the shocking reveal of an alternate dimension of Loki's at the end of the episode, mid-credits, end credits, it hints to there also being a way Mobius was sent to the same kind of universe, maybe a pruned Mobius timeline, setting up a way we could get the Mobius Council teaming up with Loki variants against the TVA. Hopefully all we will see at least is that Mobius turning up to the end battle in the finale on a jet ski. With regards to the other Loki variants at the end of the episode, we clearly have the classic costume done by Richard E. Grant, who is playing, shall we say, a more experienced variant of Loki, accompanied by Kid Loki holding what seems to be a lizard. It does have the Loki crown, so I assume it's some variant of Loki from the comics, one that I'm not aware of. A version of Loki can also be seen donning, which seems to be Mjolnir. Speaking of Loki variants, our dear Sylvie is all but confirmed to be borrowing the leftover Enchantress powers from Hela in Thor Ragnarok. Her ability to restore memories through enchantments is a truly lethargic experience to watch as the walls of the false memories implanted in B-15's head fade away. Maybe they will find a way to boost this power and block the memories of all TVA members without having to physically touch each individual person. Thanks, guys. I will get back to you one more time. I promise it will be the last, as I have a way to wrap it all up. Thank you very much, and I will see you in a second. Hey guys, there is more I could get into, but I do need to wrap up, as I know you guys have listened to the whole voice note at this point, and I know it definitely will not fit on the podcast. The last thing I will leave you guys with is that I would like to hear your guys' ideas on who or what exactly is behind the curtain. Could it be Kang, He Who Remains? Even so, which version of the characters could we potentially see? It could be a twist on Kang. Potentially Nathaniel Richards, making him a descendant of the Fantastic Four, which has never been explicitly confirmed in the comics, I don't believe, but it would be a cool way to bring them in. Maybe they attempted to stop their descendant when they discovered his control on the sacred timeline, but since then they've been trapped in the quantum realm or some form of the TVA, even maybe in the looped time cells we saw Lady Sif appear in. This could explain their absence throughout the MCU. Anyways, this is a message involving a lot from my time too shy to join in with the conversation, so I hope I covered enough for a few more months of hiding. Thank you guys again and keep it up. Thanks, Samuel.
Thank you, Samuel. Don't be hiding. Send us in some voicemails and send us in some emails as you go. You don't have to go back into hiding. It's really great to hear from you. Some really interesting thoughts there.
Loved all the thoughts. Loved all the theory. Loved the Mjolnir? Meow meow. Meow meows.
Meow meow.
Meow meow. It's always easier just to say meow meow.
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir. Meow meow. It's so much better to say. No, I love that. And yes, it did. The crocodile or the alligator Loki is, again, not from the comics, but we're not sure. The He Who Remains theory is interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen it put around a few times.
Yeah.
I'm a bit... I think it's that step too far into the comics for the MCU right now, but I think it's potentially they could get there in another couple of phases. I think it's just we got to remember that those who read the comic books, we understand some of the tropes of comic books and things like that, but for those who don't, it's a stretch too far. I do like Nathaniel Richards' option, but I think they're holding that to introduce them by themselves first.
I think you probably wouldn't get an introduction like that. And I know a lot of people don't read the comics, so this is going to get a little complex. So we're probably not going to go too in depth into that. I don't think they'd introduce something as complex as that into the show. You may get a reveal of something like Mobius is the leader of the TVA because you've had him for 4 episodes, exactly as you said, Chris. That there might be some kind of twist like that for people who are just watching the show, because they've kind of consistently said they don't want to bring in things into the show that mean you have to go and watch the movies. They don't want to bring things into the movies that you have to have watched on the show to connect. They want to kind of make them reasonably self-contained, as we've seen in the last 2 shows. But I don't know whether they'd open up a massive can of worms in the last 2 episodes. But I do like the idea of, maybe them introducing the Thanos of the TV universe at the end of the series and then explaining that in the movie. But I don't know whether they're going to go massively into depth and introduce something like the Fantastic Four, the TV show. Yeah. In that way, I don't know whether that's going to be the one, but it really does feel like we're getting a big reveal really soon. It's hard to tell what that reveal is going to be because I don't know whether we have enough information at all for that.
I mean, I kind of think maybe Nathaniel Richards is not going to be, brought in here. I think unless that is just like mega foresight from someone in Marvel because they knew the deal was going to happen, I guess, but possibly. I
could see them maybe bringing in the character and then in 3 or 4 years going, that character was actually Nathaniel Richards,
well,
maybe,
that's true. That's true. They could do something like that. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I think for me, like the big thing would be Kang, and it would connect in, as we mentioned in this this week's discussion. But I kind of like your idea of He Who Remains, that it could be, I think they're potentially obscure enough and bureaucratic enough from the comics. It's kind of like Agatha Harkness. I mean, that, maybe you only need 2 episodes with this character. I mean, if you think about it as well, if Renslayer is more deeply involved, at this moment, I don't know whether I would buy that she would be deeply involved with Kang, for example. Yeah, someone who is another step up the ladder in the TVA, like He Who Remains, could be that option.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, a lot of the big things here about this series is it's around Loki. It's about Loki. It's about his multiple versions of himself and how that plays out. And so maybe it's something. Maybe that there's a bit of a red herring here, a bit like with the Wizard of Oz, like we're saying, that actually you draw back the curtain. It's not a big bad. It's someone doing all the levers and the knobs and pushing the buttons to give the appearance of that. And that to me fits a bit with He Who Remains.
I must admit, I know absolutely nothing about the character He Who Remains. It seems to be a really obscure character because I don't even know from comic books. I've never even heard of the character. But I in my mind, all I can think is it's either someone from the show, like we've seen in the other shows, it's either someone that we've seen, like Ravona, potentially, becoming the leader of the TVA. She's been there all the time kind of thing. It's someone completely obscure that we've never met before and is just literally pushing the buttons in the background, and it doesn't matter. Loki punches them in the face and then that's the end of the series. Or it's someone that we're going to get to know in the future, like as we've said, Kang, who will be a future villain in the movies. So, potentially they reveal him here in the show. So that's kind of the options that I have, not knowing who He Who Remains is, but really, really good voicemail. Thanks so much, Samuel, for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Yes, thanks, Sam. We also have some feedback from the one and only Steve Brown.
Hey guys, it's Steve, and this is for Loki episode 4. Don't think we've got a title for it yet, at least I haven't seen a title. So I did send an email earlier when I was about 15 minutes in with a prediction that didn't get confirmed or denied in this episode anyway, so read it or not, no big. But yeah, another really solid episode. Man, I can't believe when she blasted Owen Wilson, my mouth just was open. Like I was just like, what? And then just, so many things. The timekeepers are androids. Are they being controlled by the real timekeepers? Or the timekeepers don't even exist? What's going on? Wow, so much to process after this one, and can't wait to hear you guys talk about it. I can't wait to watch it again and podcast on it as well, because man, this one is going to have us talking for a bit, I think. So, but a couple of quick things before I sign off here. Absolutely loved that fight scene in the chamber there with the Loki and Sylvie fighting together. It was just marvelous. And, I loved B-15. I'm sorry to see her go, but that was really, really, cool. The way they pulled that off of her going in and taking Sylvie out and then, being convinced that she's a variant. So, all right. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Steve. He mentioned an email that he sent in. He said in the email, he hasn't finished the episode yet, but he predicts that what caused the spike is that the Lokis are not supposed to die, just as Loki said. So that was his theory, that they're not supposed to die. So because I think I kind of mentioned that earlier on, that Loki specifically says that too, we're not supposed to die. And just as he goes to touch her hand, the spike increases. So potentially the two of them working together is what saved them. That's an interesting theory. We'll probably see it next episode, I guess.
Yeah, they have not gone into immortal territory in the MCU in the aspect of the immortality, I should say, because there's a difference between in comic books and the MCU between immortality and invulnerability.
Yeah,
kind of here, like Thanos was invulnerable to because everyone threw everything at him and he kind of only got scratched.
Yeah. In Loki's case, he just escapes death by many methods, even though you see him on screen die very often.
Yeah,
so maybe that's it. Maybe that planet at the end, or the New York at the end, is where they dump all of the Eternals or the immortal beings that they can't erase from timeline, can't erase from existence because they're actually immortal. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
There can only be one Highlander. It's on Netflix now. Go check it out. Sean Connery is a Spaniard. in a Scottish accent.
It's dated badly. I've heard they're remaking Highlander, and it's one movie that I'd love to see remade. I can see that.
Henry Cavill. Excellent.
Once again, thanks so much, everybody, for all of your feedback. It's great to hear it. Please keep it coming in. 2 more weeks of Loki to come. We will be back next week with our discussion about Loki episode 5. We are also talking about Star Wars, The Bad Batch, every week as well, up to episode 10 coming out this weekend. Go check it out if you're a Star Wars fan, especially if you've liked Star Wars animation in the past. Really continues that great tradition of Star Wars animation. You can find all of that over on tvpodcastindustries.com, or just search for our podcast. Just search using TV Podcast Industries and you'll find us everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yes, and if you like what you listen to, why not head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where for a single galactic credit, if you like Bad Batch, or a TVA book, I don't know, it's close enough. For that, you can do a quick old patronage to our dulcet tones to help us keep the servers going, the hamsters in the wheel running, and of course, Derek in coffee. Thank you so much for doing that. Head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, or buymeacoffee.com/TVPI to literally buy him coffee and vodka. Mm-hmm. Well, just coffee. The coffee part of the coffee. We'll supply the vodka.
Vodka's expensive, man. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us. And Chris, you're not joining us next week for our
Unfortunately, yes, I am bringing my beautiful wife away for a couple of days to a hotel in Ireland, because that is as far as we can go. So we can go down the wee country. You know, lads, we'll go down the country to Cork. And Cork boy, and we'll just jump in a hotel. But that means I will not be able to dial in. I will be away, but I will give my thoughts to the boys via Messenger and see what they can either read it out or laugh hysterically as I get it wrong.
And you'll be here for Star Wars Bad Batch episode 10, our next episode that's coming out. So we won't say total goodbye to you, Chris. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And by the way, never use the Borat voice when you're referring to your wife. It's never a good idea.
My wife?
No, never
I was not doing that.
You absolutely did that.
I mistakenly did that.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks, fellow defenders. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep pruning.
For all time, always.
Bye.